What's up, guys? My name is Devin, and I'm the host of Let's Play Survivor. The monumental 50th season of Survivor premieres in less than a week. So I wanted to take the time, come on the channel, and do a recast who I think should have been selected for the 25-year anniversary, the biggest celebration Survivor has ever seen. I have selected 90 people to be on a short list of who I feel should have been considered for this season. I have divided those 90 players into 5 categories. Those 5 categories are being defined as the Survivor legends, the icons of the game, the all-stars, the people who are deserving of a second chance, and what I'm calling a couple wild cards. Stay tuned, see how the categories shake out. By the end of this video, we will have a full cast of Let's Play Survivor's Season 50 recast. All right, let's start the first round with the wild cards. There's only 3 people who I selected for this category. I really wasn't going to throw a whole bunch of crazy names, although these 3 people I feel like should have some kind of significant consideration. They are Natalie from David vs. Goliath. I feel like she is iconic and very well known for the whole jacket gate with Miss Angelina. I have Liz from season 46. I'm pissed, the Applebee's. How do you not remember her? She is iconic, and although she was not a great Survivor player, she is etched into history due to her catastrophic meltdown. And then last on the list, this is really probably the biggest swing out of the 3, is Jake from season 49. I feel like he was very well positioned into that season. I feel like Jeff and the production team likes him. Due to him being evacuated and his story on 49, we didn't get to see a lot of him. I feel like he is destined for a second chance, but will it be on Survivor 50? The next group we have are the second chancers. Mostly this group consists of the new era players who have not yet had a chance to return, although amongst them are sprinkled in a few old school players such as Greg, Colleen, Sean Rector from Marquesas, and a few others. These are the players who were not necessarily the biggest or most overt players on their season, but are a handful of players who I feel deserve a second chance. All right, we have the third group. The players that I am considering the all-stars. We have a few 3-timers on here, such as Jarvis, Miss Tasha, Monica, Candace, who, while some might consider them an icon, I feel like they really haven't done enough within their Survivor career to be grouped with the next set of icons who I've considered. And then amongst the group are the one-time players who I feel made a significant impact on their season, such as Dominic, Christian, and then a lot of the new era players such as Shan, and then some of our winners like Kinsey, Rachel, Savannah. The fourth group we have are the people I'm considering icons. The icons are considered some of the greatest players to ever play the game, or some people who have been participants in some of the most iconic moments the show has ever seen. In the group of icons, I have Cochran, Andrea, Ty, Cass, and then some older players such as Savage, Jonathan Penner, Jenna Lewis from Borneo. This was really the hardest group to put together. I tried to mix it up as best I could to mimic what we're seeing on 50. I feel like on 50 we have a lot of variation. We have some people deserving of a second chance. We have some all-stars. We have the wild cards. And then we have the true Survivor legends. And speaking of the legends, the Survivor Legends is the group that I had the most fun putting together. Mind you, this is not the defined cast. This is just the group that I have on the short list of 90. Within this group, you have the OGs, Hatch, Colby, Jerry, Tina, Rob, Rupert, Fairplay, Sandra. The list goes down and down and down. You even have some of the newer people who I would consider a legend, such as Tony, Jeremy, Natalie Anderson, Kelly, and Sarah Lucina. All right, after having taken a quick look over the 5 categories, we're going to dive into our first round of cuts. So getting into our first round of cuts, some pretty heavy hitters on here. You have the 3 wild cards. While it was fun to entertain them being on the show, Liz, Natalie, Jake, there really was no shot. And then I have the winners at War Players. We just seen them in 2020, only 6 years ago, but move over, guys. Somebody else deserves a chance to make a legendary run. So, cut in the first round includes the 3 wild cards, plus Boston Rob, Tony, Jeremy, Sandra, Parvati, Sarah Lucina, and Natalie Anderson. First round of cuts really came down to the wild cards, plus a sprinkling of the winners at War Players. Nothing against them. They are all very iconic. They came back for the 40th season in the biggest showdown that we have seen yet. However, I don't need to see Boston Rob. I don't need to see Tony, Sarah Lucina. I don't need to see any of these players on my screen again. Most of them have served their purpose for the show, and hopefully 40 was their ride off into the sunset. While Parvati was great on Australia versus the World, I don't need to see her or any of these other players for season 50. Now let's get into round 2 of cuts. So those first 10 were the ones right off the top of my head I knew had no shot at making the cast. From here on out, I had to put a lot more thought into who I was selecting. As we get into round 2 of the cuts, for the second chancers, the people who did not make the cast include Greg and Colleen from Borneo, T-Bird from Africa, Sean Rector from Marquesas, RC, Sydney, Gabby, Devin, Ricard from season 41, Noel, Cassidy, Caleb, and Sophie from season 49. Nothing against these players. They all are very deserving of a return. However, it was hard for me to get on board with some of them. I feel like the old guys, the ship has unfortunately sailed, and Sean Rector is someone who I specifically put a lot of thought into just because of how he was back in the early 2000s. Very much aligns with how society is today, and I feel like that would be a great storytelling purpose for Survivor 50. But with that in mind, I don't need the show to be a cultural or political storytelling. I would genuinely like for this to be a true celebration. And so for that reason, within the round 2 second chance cuts, Sean was probably the most difficult. Some of the players cut from the all-star selection of the Survivor 50 shortlist include some of the old heads like Jervis, Candace, Monica. I would consider Tasha to be in the older era now since season 28 was so far away. Mike Holloway is another one. David Wright, who is someone I do not feel gets his flowers, was a very good player. I just feel like he has been lost within the history. And then a few of our new era winners who just didn't make the cut. I would love to see him again, but there's some other players who I would like to see more, which includes Marianne, Jam Jam, Kenzie, and Rachel Lamont. All right, our fourth group getting cut from round 2 is the icons. There was a significant amount of icons who were cut. It's really hard to juggle because like most of these players on the icon list, I feel have already had their story played out. And while they would be fun to see again, I don't think they were that crucial as far as we have to put them on the show. There's a few new era icons who I consider just more so larger than life. Most of this list of icons consists of players who I feel their story has already been told. So being cut round 2 from the icons includes Jenna Lewis from Borneo, Andrew Savage, Shane, Terry Dietz, Jonathan Penner, Earl, Stephen Fishback, Andrea Cochran, Abby, Spencer, Cass, Ty, and Aubrey from Survivor Go Wrong. What could go wrong on Survivor Go Wrong? All right, and so for our 5th group of round 2 cuts is the Survivor Legends. This was another hard one. You are really invested in the players in the icon and the legend category. So these 2 groups were the hardest to make cuts on. I would love to see the majority of these people back. However, not everybody can make it. There's only 24 slots, and I kind of save it for a few new era, for a few second chancers. So for the list of getting cut from the legend category includes Tina Wesson from Australian Outback, one of my favorite players of all time, Rupert, Johnny Fairplay, Stephanie LaGrossa, Tom Westman from Palau, Ozzy, and Sierra Easton. All right, after 2 rounds of cuts, we're left with 36 players of the 90 remaining. We have 20 men, we have 16 women, 8 men have to go, 4 ladies also have to go to get down to our final 24. Starting with the men, the last 8 people to be cut and who will not be making the cast of Survivor 50 include new era representatives Omer, Cody, Andy, and Rizzo. You have James and Coach. you have Colby Donaldson, who I know he was cast on Survivor 50. However, for me personally, after seeing how he performed on Heroes vs. Villains, if he was Superman in a fat suit in 2010, how is he going to perform in 2025, 2026? I have no interest in seeing Colby Donaldson on my screen. I have no interest seeing him running around the beaches of Fiji. While he is a legendary player, he goes down in history as one of the first fan favorites. I don't think he necessarily needs to be cast on 50. I don't know what left he has to prove. I feel like we have seen the story of Colby. The chapter has closed. The book has finished. I don't know what we get on season 50. Maybe he will prove me wrong. For me personally, he will not be on my cast. And then last but not least, the male who probably was the hardest player for me to cut is Malcolm. Malcolm is another one who played 3 seasons pretty quickly. Malcolm is so fun to watch. I love seeing him on my screen. He got absolutely screwed in Survivor Game Changers, and although I would love to see him back for Survivor 50, I had to mix it up with a few second chancers, and that is really what stopped him from being cast. All right, as for the women, 4 ladies have to go. This was not as difficult as the men. I feel like coming in, even when I had my 90 people shortlist, I had a pretty good idea of the ladies who I was going to cast. There were maybe only 3 or 4 deviations from what I had planned originally. So with that being said, the 4 women who will not be making the cast of Survivor 50 includes Venus and Camilla of the New Era, Kelly Wentworth, and last but not least, Natalie Bolton. I don't know when or how Natalie gets back onto the show. It seems as though the time has passed. She has had chance after chance. She had Heroes vs. Villains. She had Game Changers. She had Second Chance. She had Cara Moen. I feel like Cara Moen, along with Eric, was probably the best spot for her. Place her there in lieu of Francesca. I don't know why she was ever placed on the cast. I'm getting down a rabbit hole. Unfortunately, while I would love to see Natalie again, there are just other players who I want to see more and who, in my opinion, are more deserving of a spot on Survivor 50. All right, we have cut our final 14 players, which means our cast for Survivor 50 is locked in stone. I have 12 men, 12 women, New Era players, old school players, legends, icon, second chancers, and all-stars, all battling for the crown of Survivor 50. Making my cast includes Jerry Manthe from the Australian Outback. She almost won Heroes vs. Villains. I am curious how her legendary status is received if she wins that final immunity. If she wins final immunity in Heroes vs. Villains, there's a good chance she goes on to win the game. And that is saying something. That is the most iconic Survivor season to ever exist. Unlike Colby Donaldson, she has gotten better season after season. And I would love to see how Jerry comes back and can play 15 years later. The next 2 players I have are Sari and Amanda. Sari, I really could never get tired of her. I know we just saw her on Australia versus the World not even 6 months ago. But listen, it's Sari Fields, brother. If she wants to come play on the island, you let her come play on the island. She probably doesn't have a high likelihood of winning the game, but she's somebody who has a high chance of making it deep, being very entertaining, and being, as always, a fan favorite. Amanda Kimmel, whenever I found out she was cast onto Survivor 50 but backed out at the last minute, I was absolutely devastated. There's something about Amanda that is so fun to watch, and she's another one, exactly like James. She played 3 seasons very quickly, all within a few years. I would love to see how she would engage and contribute to the new era of Survivor, she really is one of the original cutthroat players. I feel like the Black Widow Brigade really perfected the art of deception, and she was very integral in that. So Amanda Kimmel, she was an absolute lock. As soon as I put this cast together, there was no consideration. I didn't write it down in pencil. I put it down in pen. She was getting on this cast one way or another. We have two of the late 30 era ladies, Chrissy and Angelina. They had a great showing their first season out. Angelina was a very interesting character, to say the least. She's another one. I don't think she has much win equity. Never have a strategic thought in her mind, and her entertainment value will absolutely carry her. Chrissy, of course, she got absolutely screwed by production. Why you wouldn't tell somebody about a game-changing twist at the Final Four, I have no idea. But regardless, she excelled in her season. She won immunity after immunity. Chrissy is a player who, year after year, I was hoping that another all-star season could come. And I was hoping as the years got further and further along that she would not be overshadowed within the history of Survivor. So I am ecstatic not only that she was cast onto Survivor 50 in real life, but that she has been cast onto my Survivor 50. Moving on to the new era, ladies, I have Shan. Shan was an absolute mob boss. I don't know what it is about her, but she came out guns blazing. She was absolutely cold-blooded and cutthroat, which some people don't love, but I feel as there's absolutely a place on Survivor for that, and I would love to see how she could be integrated within a collection of returnees in this way. I don't think she would be the most threatening player out there. Just because we've had 8 seasons since she last played, we have a little bit of time away. The recency bias is not there. And I think she's one of those players who, she's somebody I feel like can go down in history as a player who is very no nonsense and will do whatever it takes to win the game. Which, there's value in that. There's value in being guns blazing, just balls to the wall, do what you have to do to win. That is what I want to see, especially on an all-star season. I don't want to see the Hello Kitty, the soft, the puppy gloves. I want to see these players come out swinging, and I feel like Shan would have done that, and she would have been able to hold her own amongst this group of returning players. Next up for the ladies, I have Carolyn. I won't say a whole lot about Carolyn. I don't know how she doesn't make the cast. I know there was a lot of debate about her appearance on The Traitors being potentially the reason she wasn't cast. I'm not going to put a whole lot of equity into that. For Let's Play Survivor sake, she is cast on to Survivor 50. Much like Angelina, she's not one who is going to have a lot of win equity coming into the game, but her personality alone cements her onto this cast. Next up is Emily Flippin. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not a big Emily Flippin fan. I didn't love her on her season on Survivor 45. I understand why people do like her. She's just not for me, really. The thing I am most interested in seeing when it comes to Emily is how she can fare having real relationships into the game. She is someone who, going into her original season, she was very no-nonsense. If she felt it, she was going to say it. I'm curious how after her season and being ingrained within the Survivor community and the returning player community, how she's going to fare. I don't think she's going to play the same game she did before, and so I'm very curious how she can tweak and extend her life into a game full of this caliber of player. All right, my next woman on the list is Dee from Survivor 45. Dee is one of those players who, for whatever reason, I feel has the potential to be larger than life. I'm not saying she is going to perform to the level of a Boston Rob or a Parvati, but I feel like she has the character and the personality to be amongst the greats. But there's something about Dee that I feel like can transcend bigger than Survivor. And we need that in the current age. All of our true legends are from 20 years ago. And Dee is a person who I think can be larger than life. She's been on the challenge. She hasn't been on the Traders yet. I feel like it could be coming. And so she was another one who was an absolute lock for my final cast. For the 10th spot for the ladies, I have Maria from Survivor 46. And to be completely transparent, I did enjoy watching Maria on her original season, but she was cast for the sole purpose to see the fallout between her and Charlie. They were locked in stone on Survivor 46. She went home, Charlie made it to the final tribal council, and she is the reason he did not win the game. She voted for Kenzie, did not vote for Charlie. The whole world was shocked, Charlie included. They were best friends on the island, and they left as enemies. The best part of a returning player season is not that, oh, I get to see my favorite players back. It has always, for me, been the follow-up to the original story. I have Genevieve. Genevieve is another one. She is, from what I have gathered, probably one of the biggest fan favorites of the new era. I don't think there's a single person who dislikes her. She was an integral part of Operation Italy, which is one of the more iconic blindsides in the history of Survivor. Yeah, Genevieve, another one. She was an absolute lock. And then for my last spot on the women's side is Savannah Louie from Survivor 49. I want to see how Savannah can come in and play within a majority alliance. She played from the bottom. She was an ultimate underdog last season. And so I feel like she has a lot of grit, but I would like to see her in a little more comfortable position and to see how she can navigate not having to be a girl with her claws out. I would like to see how she can work socially and strategically and not just fighting for her life every single day. Moving on to the men, I have Richard Hatch, the original Survivor. Richard, in my opinion, was a no-brainer. I will leave all of the outside stuff up for debate for somebody else. In my opinion, you cannot celebrate the success of this franchise without Richard Hatch. He is the godfather in how the game is played. Without him, there is no Survivor. The next man I have cast onto this season is Lex from Survivor Africa. And the reason I cast Lex is because, much like Richard, you cannot tell the story of Survivor without Amber and Rob. And you cannot tell the story of Amber and Rob without Lex. If he does not vote out Jerry that night, sends Amber packing, who knows what the story of Survivor could be. Rob ended up being the most iconic player following his stint in Survivor All-Stars. Amber won $1 million, and now they have several little girls running around. And you can't still tell the story of the love of Amber and Rob without Lex. And I feel like that is an integral part of the story and the celebration of 50 seasons. I have another Survivor OG, Rob Cesternino. So his is less the story of Survivor and more so the impact on the overall scope of the franchise. He is the ultimate Survivor superfan. He grew my passion and love for Survivor further than it ever was. Listening to him speak hours upon hours about this game. I didn't have friends growing up who gave a shit about this show, so Rob was really the one who I would spend time with, listening to, talk about the thing that I love the most. And we all exist on the internet these days, and he is the face of our community. So there was no question within my mind to cast him on Survivor 50. We have Eric Reichenbach from Micronesia. Much like Richard Hatch and Lex before him, you cannot tell the story of the Black Widow Brigade without Eric. If Eric doesn't give away his immunity idol, who knows how that season and the legacy of those ladies across from him play out. Eric is an integral part of the story of Survivor. A legacy was built off of his casualty. Think about that for a second. The casualty of Eric is what built the legacies of the Black Widow Brigade. And while though he was not successful in his story of Survivor, seeing him medically evacuated on Karamoan, There's still so much Eric that I want to see. Next 3 guys I will rattle off because I don't feel like there's much that needs to be said for these 3 gentlemen. You have Christian from David vs. Goliath, Dominic from Ghost Islands, and Rick Devens from Edge of Extinction. These are 3 guys who, absolute no-brainers. They were kind of in that purgatory area of the mid to late 30s who were their seasons too far away for them to still be relevant in the scope of current day Survivor. I am absolutely ecstatic that 2 of the 3 of these men were cast onto Survivor 50. And while the story of Survivor overall is not contingent on their success, I feel like they have legacies that they can build upon. And so that is why I chose these 3 gentlemen for my cast for season 50. Next up, I have 5 men of the new era of Survivor. Jonathan and Joe are 2 gentlemen who I have cast onto this list, not due to personal preference, but more so because they fit an archetype that I don't really have existing on this cast, and an archetype that I feel you have to have. Not everybody can be game bots. Not everybody can be the guys going out there and being the big socialites. You have to have these guys who are going to play second fiddle and just be the muscle. Be an integral part of a alliance and just keep it moving. Next is Q from Survivor 46. This is a personality hire, to be completely honest. I do not see Q having any win equity in real life or in my fantasy cast that I have put together here. But he's a personality, man. And again, much like Joe and Jonathan, he fits an archetype. He fits a need for this cast. And he was one of those players who I was unsure. I didn't know if I wanted him or if I wanted Malcolm. I love Malcolm, but Q does deserve his second chance. From season 43 is Jesse Lopez. Jesse played the most passionate game of Survivor I have seen, possibly since Tony Vlachos. This man wanted it for his children. He was in there for business. He went for one mission only. He fell short, 4th place. I don't know how Jesse did not make the real life season 50 cast. He has so much more to prove, and I feel like he plays with a chip on his shoulder. This is the kind of player who you want to come back. This is the kind of guy who you want to see time and time again. He is going to give it his all. Last but not least, I have Charlie from season 46. I've already kind of touched on it a little bit with the Maria situation. Charlie felt like a lock for me. He, much like Aubrey, was highly debated whether he should have won or whether he should have lost. Unfortunately, that decision was left up to his #1 ally and closest friend on the island, Maria, and she screwed him over. I have Maria and Charlie coming back just to see how that story evolves. All right, guys, there you have it. My cast for Survivor 50. I have legends, all-stars, icons, and second chancers all fighting for a spot at the most legendary crown, the biggest celebration in Survivor history. If you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments section below. I will be posting more videos. So if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, and until next time, the tribe has spoken.